I've got a FRSky SBUS to PWM converter here, or decoder. This allows you to add more channels to a receiver. And in this case, I've got the twin receiver from FRSky, the GR8. And I need to add an extra channel. The sailplane I'm using needs 9 channels, and this is an 8-channel receiver. So with this little gizmo, you can add more channels. The problem is FRSky discontinued the programmer that you need to program this little board. And yet they still sell this board, but they don't sell the programmer. Rumor has it that eventually there's going to be a Lewis script written for a future version of Ethos, but right now that doesn't exist, so there's no way to program this thing with not having the programming card. Well, it turns out somebody wrote a program in Windows that allows you to program this, but you need the FRSky STK. And luckily, they still sell this, and it's not that expensive. It's going to run you somewhere from $11 to $15, depending on where you buy it. And when you get this, you're going to need to make sure that this slider switch is set to upgrade. All right? You're going to then plug this board into this, the label on the port here. It's 2. So it's going to be plugged on this side. Pay attention to the polarity. Everything is, nicely labeled here. So don't mess up the polarity when you plug this in. And then I'll show you from Windows how you can download this small application and program this board so you can tell your receiver and transmitter what channels you want coming out of these 4 different ports that are on this particular board.
Okay, so I've got the app loaded, but before you launch the app, make sure you have the STK and the decoder plugged into the computer. And also make sure that slider switch on the STK is set to update. So the first thing you want to do is run the scan button. That's going to find the COM ports that have something on it. So you hit scan. Now this is a guessing game. You got to figure out where is the STK, depending on how many COM ports you have and what's possibly plugged into them. In my case, it's not on COM 1, it's on COM 3. So I'm going to pick COM 3, and I'll show you how you can know if you picked the right COM port. Hit the start button. Once you hit this, wait a couple seconds. If you see a 0 here in the current channel, that means it's not talking to the STK. At that point, my best recommendation is try rebooting the computer, see if that fixes it. If that doesn't fix it, try a different USB port and see if it'll find or work correctly on your computer. So to confirm, you can look at the decoder chip. It has a row of green LEDs labeled 1 to 4, channels 1 to 4, and make sure it's on channel 1. And now you decide, what do you want channel 1 to actually be on your receiver. So in my case, I have an 8-channel receiver, so I want the first port to be channel 9. So I'm going to go over here and pick 9. And then you hit set. Once you see a 9 in here, that means it correctly set the channel. Now, using a toothpick or a ballpoint pen or something, go over to the decoder board, and there's a little button on it near the wire, and press that button, and it'll move the LED to channel 2. And once you have the LED on channel 2, I'm going to make channel 2 channel 10. I'm going to press set. Now it's 10. I'm going to go back to the board, bump the LED again to channel 3 on the board. I'm going to make that 11. Press set. One more time. pressed it. It's now on channel 4 with the green LED. I'm going to make this 12. I press set, and now you're done. Just make sure this always updates that number. I'm not sure if you should press the stop or not. I would. And at that point, your board should be set up correctly with the right channel numbers. And remember, that plugs into the SBUS out connector on your receiver. And you should not need to rebind the receiver. As long as you initially bound it for D1 to D16 when you first set it up and bound it, it should automatically see the new channels by just going into your airplane setup menus, your output menus, and your mix menu. You can assign the channels however you want.
All right, to show that it's working correctly, I've got 3 junk servos plugged into channels 1 through 3 on the decoder board. And I've got it set up on my right slider on my transmitter. And as you can see, the servos are all moving. I tied all 3 channels together on the mix just to make it simple before I put this thing in the sailplane. These are going to be my spoiler channels. So, this proves that it works fine. And just so you know how you go in and do this, if you've got ethos, you would just, create a mix. In my case, I called it a free mix. That's what I started with. And then I assigned it, in this particular case, let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so I called the mix spoilers. And I just went in here. And then I added a channel, and I called, for this case, I made it 3 channel count. And then I just pointed at the channels 9 and 10 and 11. And so it's very simple. There was no rebinding of the receiver to do or anything to see that extra decoder on there. So it's very straightforward. Be careful, though, with this being plugged into just a single wire here. Depending on how many amps your servos are drawing, you might want to be cautious to how much power you want to go through here, because if you've already got 8 servos plugged into your receiver and now you're possibly going to plug 4 more into here, just be conscious of how many amps each servo is drawing. You may want to run a separate power source or another BEC line to the extra servos and just disconnect the plus on this wire so that you can have an extra power going directly to the SBUS board, because you are going to be adding an additional maybe 4 channels onto here. In my case, I'm only adding 1 additional servo. That's all I needed. But otherwise, I want to thank Mike Blandford for coming up with that channel changer program. He's come up with a couple of apps over the years for FRSky to fill in the holes, and he saved the day here, because I don't know why they discontinued the programming board, yet they still sell the decoder board. That was kind of silly of them to do that. And that little app that he wrote allows us to keep this going until they can get that Lewis script ready.